So by now we've all seen Mark Zuckerberg waving his hands around in the metaverse, but today we got a chance to talk with Witek from Enjin to learn about what it might really look like in the next 10 years. Hi there, and welcome to the Parachain Auctions podcast hosted by Kraken. I'm Brian Hoffman, crypto platform product lead, and I'm glad you could join me out here on the cutting edge of crypto technologies. On this show, you'll hear from leaders and innovators around the world building parachains on Kusama and Polkadot. Tune in for insights from the best and brightest about their new projects. Whether this is the first time you've heard of parachains or you're a DeFi aficionado, come with us behind the scenes as we talk about the future of tomorrow, today. All right, today we have with us Witek Radomski, who's CTO at Enjin, who's here to chat with us today about their Polkadot project, Efinity. Obviously, Enjin goes way further back than just Efinity, and I think you've been in the industry for quite a bit. We'd love to learn a little bit more about your background. How did you get started in tech, and then how did that lead into Enjin?
Hey, thanks. So I actually helped found Enjin about 13 years ago. We were Maxim and I were basically huge gamers, and we played like all sorts of games, MMOs, first-person shooters, lots of online games, and we realized that there was tons of clans, guilds that formed these communities, and so we created this sort of website, social network creation platform that was pretty revolutionary 13 years ago. And we managed to grow that to 20 million users, 250,000 gaming communities. And we noticed that a lot of them were actually using donations and things to support their guilds and clans. So around 2017, we realized, we could actually do something interesting, and we created Enjin. The idea was to allow game developers and gamers to use blockchain to actually do transactions, own items, and actually use this in a gaming context. And that's what took us to where we are now.
So a lot of companies in that kind of realm didn't really go like the blockchain path. They've kind of avoided that in a lot of ways and still been pretty successful. I mean, maybe extremely successful. Like what was it about blockchain that you saw as a differentiator from just kind of the traditional path of building that business?
Well, we saw that people really loved owning things in game. They had their characters and aliases in this virtual universe that they existed in, and we noticed that some of the problems people were experiencing were, game developers didn't really like people trading things on eBay. They didn't. There was a lot of things like account bans happening. People would lose their whole account, lose their kind of digital identity, have to start from scratch. That was a problem. There was fraud. There was all kinds of difficulties dealing with these centralized sort of walled gardens that game developers would create. We also noticed that the modding community was huge in games. So any game that had the ability to add like customizations and run a game server and do different things would go huge, would explode, right? And that led us to thinking, blockchain is amazing. We can actually tap into any data of any game. It's all public. People have ownership of their items. We kind of helped create this concept, 4.5 years ago. So we said, let's build a platform that makes this easy, because we realized that blockchain was really difficult to use. People didn't really connect it with gaming. There's a few little gaming experiments in the early days, but they weren't very sophisticated. So we just said, let's do something completely new. That's what we've always been doing, coming up with interesting ideas, and it's. I think it's really starting to take off.
So you guys have been at it for quite a while, but obviously Ethereum and ERC 721s are not the first kind of like true NFT type of concept, right? There was like Spells of Genesis and like the Rare Pepes. I mean, were you following it that at that time? Did that seem interesting, or like even like something that you could apply to what you were doing, or was it still kind of just conceptual for you?
Yeah, I remember actually listening to the Spells of Genesis guy. I was part of this Bitcoin community in my city in Vancouver, and the Spells of Genesis guy did a presentation for us and showed us what he was doing. And I said, well, this is really interesting, using cards as items. And so yeah, there was some initial experimentation, but the issue was they weren't standardized.
Mm-hmm.
It was very like all the blockchain games and experiments were very uh, single purpose little experiments. There was also Satoshi Dice back in the day. There was
Yep.
all those games you mentioned, and yeah, we wanted to do something a little bit bigger because it can't grow if it's contained to a single game. There's Hunter Coin as well, right? And that
Mm-hmm.
turned into a giant bot fest with just the whole game is run by bots, right? But we said, let's do something and build a platform that can grow, because we noticed, building a platform for gaming communities let it grow and expand, and all these gaming communities would talk together and link together. So we did this. We created a token standard. I authored ERC 1155 because back when we started, there was no ERC 721. There was no NFT standard. No one was thinking about NFTs really. So yeah.
So, in terms of the timeline, are you saying that 1155 came before 721, or just that you guys were thinking about it kind of prior to 721?
Yeah, so I actually created the smart contract that turned into the standard like before 721 was announced or released or anything like that. So yeah, there was ERC 20, and then there was like an extension to ERC 20 back in the day. And we looked at those, we saw what the extension was doing, and we said, well, let's allow for non-fungibles and fungibles in one contract.
Mm-hmm.
So we made an initial MVP version of the smart contract. We said, wow, this is actually awesome. We can start building a platform around this. Then ERC 721 released, and we were like, oh, that's a great idea. Let's standardize this as well, because we think our standard could actually be better. So we looked at what they were doing. We standardized it as ERC 1155. We talked with the community for about a whole year. Went through tons and tons of iterations and tweaks and made it super simple. And yeah, now we have a really nice token standard.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's cool to see kind of competing. Well, I wouldn't say competing, maybe complementary standards, because I've talked with several people on the podcast. Like I spoke with like the Remark team and stuff, and one of their concerns was like, there are a lot of great things about a standard protocol like the 721 token, but there's also a lot of limitations there and not much flexibility for like kind of growing it. And so I think, yeah, the fact that you're thinking through this in more comprehensive way, especially around gaming, because I think gaming just naturally fits more into something where, you can have like a combination of kind of these like, special unique items, but also there's probably items within gaming that are just, a shield, for instance. It's not like a particular shield or it's ammo or something.
Or
Um,
gems, ammo, health kits, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, current like gold.
Exactly. And having some way for like people to actually build their games the way they want to around standards, but still be flexible, able to interoperate is huge. So
Yeah.
when you guys kind of, so I kind of want to like shift to maybe start talking about Affinity specifically, since this is the Parachain Auctions podcast. Probably good that we talk about that. When you guys announced, I think you announced around March timeframe this year. You guys, I saw your blog post. It was like, well, the market is huge, and it's around the trading volume for NFTs is like $500 million. And then I just kind of like quickly glanced at like where we're at now. I think in October it was like $10 billion. I mean, it's just incredible. And I know that that's probably like a high inflection point in the market right now, and things are probably cooling off a little bit. But long term, it seems like this is going crazy. Where do you think that the industry is heading right now? Is this like just the tip of the iceberg, or are we like thick in the NFT adoption phase?
I think we've seen the initial NFT adoption phase where everyone goes and grabs the really obvious applications of NFTs, selling collectible JPEGs and trading them, making some games that exploit that functionality. But long term, I see this going into just general digital identity and ownership. So we've always looked 10 years ahead. What is our interaction with the digital world going to look like? And as we see, it's just increasing and increasing. I'm wearing digital, internet connected devices. I'm, always communicating with so many different people and communicating with various networks and devices. And we're going to start seeing businesses and brands, do the same thing, link the physical and digital worlds. So, beyond gaming, I think that's going to happen in a massive way. You can already, basically go to a store and, just basically do everything you want. If they don't have the size of something you want, you do it on your phone. You're gonna start getting, fashion that gives you a digital twin that you can wear in your virtual persona. You're going to be able to use that across different worlds, like different games, on mobile apps, on social networks. You'll be able to represent that. We're going to see the emergence of, more powerful, basically these GAN networks that can generate images and generate content and fit it to match virtual worlds. And so then ownership and identity is going to be really important. Like, you want to be something in this digital space. You don't want to just exist in a general noise where you don't own anything and you're just a consumer. You want to actually, have something that you do in the digital space, have impact. You want to own your identity, own your items. It's kind of abstract what I'm saying, but like, we're going to be interacting this space, and our actual brain is in this digital world. So, that's why everyone's getting excited about the metaverse, because we're starting to see the very early days of these different massive, networks and blockchains and games all trying to start integrating together.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because, unless you've been living under a digital pet rock NFT or something, you know about Facebook's kind of transformation into becoming Meta and to go after the metaverse. And the reason why I think what you just said is like really salient right now is that Facebook like owns a lot of identity and that space, right? They hinge everything on Facebook Connect and like owning the kind of user experience. Do you think their push into the metaverse is like helpful, or do you think that the way that they're approaching it is maybe not where we want to go? Blockchain's about freedom, independence. You just rattled off a bunch of reasons why we want to like own our digital identity. Like, do you think Facebook's move or Meta's move is harmful or helpful to this space?
I actually don't think it's harmful. I think it's going to be helpful. They actually are not the first to want to do the metaverse. There's metaverses happening all around us. There's games like Roblox. There's game platforms that, Unity and Unreal Engine. There's various blockchains and decentralized, networks that are already exploring this. But Facebook putting its foot down and saying, yes, we're doing the metaverse as well, that really legitimizes it in the eyes of probably 90% of people. Just like NFTs, no one knew what NFTs were a year ago. Now my grandma knows what NFTs are. She wants to buy some. So Facebook's talking about the metaverse is really going to make that part of everyone's terminology, and it'll make it real. Where it's not just sci-fi, some geeks talking about the metaverse. Maybe it'll happen in 20 years. No, it's happening now. And I like the way that they're approaching it. They're going to release open APIs. They want to be part of the larger metaverse. They don't see themselves as owning it all by under the Facebook or Meta banner. So I think it's going to be good. We're going to see a decentralized component of the metaverse, and then we're going to see a few centralized large players, and everything in between.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating watching them kind of approach this because we've seen for a couple years now them try to get into cryptocurrency, have all these ideas, but they're so big that I think they think like, oh, we're going to do this, and then they realize how challenging it is to do. And I think maybe teams like yours have a lot more flexibility and kind of like ability to iterate and innovate faster in the space. And so I think it will be like this ultimate arms race between like these DAOs and even centralized companies that are just kind of organizing things on the blockchain. They're
I don't
just
think
going
it's
to
going to
be
be a race. It's actually just going to be us all working together and putting our pieces in, right? Facebook's built a lot of really useful tools. They built React, and they built many others. That GraphQL that even we use, right? Everyone's going to put in their technology, their brain power, and it's really the metaverse is the world collaborating. The businesses, the virtual universes, the blockchains, everyone collaborating together, building bridges and linking them together, so that we can exist in a space and move around it as these semi-digital humans.
Yeah. I hate to make the whole interview about meta. So just one last question, though, real quick. Do you think the metaverse in 10 years will look like what they portrayed in their little video ad with Mark in his avatar?
Hopefully not as cringy, no. But I think we're gonna exist in the physical space. We're not gonna be living in like an Oculus on our heads. But you're gonna be able to use voice assistants, your watch, your phone, your maybe your AR glasses, and see various parts of the metaverse, and you'll know what your identity is. That the entire world, I think, in 10 years will have some form of digital identity, digital currency, digital wallet, digital assets that they'll use in different ways, and they'll be integrated around the world in your in your shopping and in everything that you do, in your entertainment, movies, etc.
Yeah, it's super exciting. I know Kraken in particular is very fascinated by NFTs, and we think it's a really interesting space, certainly. So let's talk about the current status of Enjin. So you guys have Enjin Coin, which I believe is on Ethereum, right? It's a ERC20 token. If I'm correct, I deal with so many coins. I got to make sure I
Yep.
clarify that. But so now you guys are building Efinity, which is looking at Polkadot ecosystem. This may be a dumb question, just knowing what it's like to transact on Ethereum right now, but like, what was the main thrust for transitioning to a different blockchain? And can I classify it as transitioning or extending?
Yeah, I'd say we're building another platform on a more capable blockchain that is focused on NFTs. So we built this on Ethereum to start with, and Ethereum is really a good breeding ground for new ideas, experimentation. Anyone can launch a smart contract and have it do anything they want. But we realized after dealing with a lot of game developers, a lot of early adopters on our platform, there's a ton of friction points. One of them, most obviously, is the cost. No one wants to pay $10 plus per transaction to move around the digital item that maybe in some cases might only be worth 10, 20, 30, $40. It's also not really designed for interoperability. When you have smart contracts, they have to be paranoid of everything else happening. You can't have just you can't build a platform that is super efficient, because every contract that deals with any kind of game, you're going to have to do an approval for every user. You're going to have to approve, this smart contract to do trading on this other
Mhm.
smart contract. And that adds so many walls and barriers. Every time anyone has to do anything, they have to sign all these transactions, pay more money, and it's just not great to deal with. And that also constrains the tokens and the token standards that you can build. You can't use the full power of what you can do in computing when you're in this sort of smart contract virtual machine model. So we were like, let's look at what options exist. We first explored state channels, kind of like the Lightning Network. We said, can we use this to make things faster? And we spent about a year on that, and we realized, what, we could build this from scratch, but let's look at what other people are doing. We looked at a bunch of blockchains. We looked at Polkadot specifically. And the beautiful thing about Polkadot was that it let you build a custom designed parachain. What this means is you can build a parachain that is fully customized for NFTs and any kind of NFT transactions, NFT operations. You can store just a tiny bit of data to maybe represent 1 million NFTs. You don't have to go through Ethereum and make 1 million transactions and spend $100,000 or something to make all these NFTs. We can customize our parachain to be super efficient for minting, crafting, transfers, trading, all that stuff. It's just going to work cleanly and predictably on that parachain. And on top of that, we can build an economy that actually basically facilitates NFT creation and NFT creators. So when you deal with Ethereum, everyone pays that same kind of flat gas fee. They're competing with people who are paying for doing massive transactions of millions of dollars. When they're on the same platform, they want to just move their game items around. That's not really going to work well, because the guys with millions of dollars are going to win out. They're going to pay any fee necessary to get that transaction moving. So our economy on Efinity is based around NFT and value creation of NFTs. anyone who's developing NFTs, anyone's creating them, trading them, crafting with them, building games, using games, they will experience really low transaction fees because they're helping that NFT ecosystem.
Yeah, that's really huge to have it so focused on NFTs, and I think Polkadot is obviously like a great target for that kind of approach because most blockchains are not really like they don't give the general projects like that much control over like the core infrastructure, right? Like the layer one is like very strictly focused on certain things.
Exactly.
Whereas, yeah,
That's why like Solana and Ethereum, they all come with that sort of that kind of mentality. Whereas Polkadot, exactly, we can it's a framework for building a blockchain, and that the beauty of it being a framework is that we can build an NFT parachain, somebody else can build some DeFi parachain, and we're all interoperable together. We've all used the same framework, the same language, and we can communicate cross chain very easily. So we can tap into the rest of that Polkadot and Kusama ecosystem.
so you kind of talked about how Ethereum was kind of a proving ground for what you guys were building, had some challenges. But I think it's probably anybody in the Polkadot space is going, I didn't really hear about Enjin and the Kusama auctions. What happened? They don't have a parachain there, and that's kind of been described as like this testing proving ground for parachains. Why didn't you guys decide to do that, or did you have a different strategy in mind?
We considered this quite a bit. Firstly, we're building a NFT platform, and when we're the way that we're building it sort of where mainstream games, mainstream businesses can go and use this platform to build their NFT ecosystem. We looked at Kusama, and a lot of the reason that somebody might want to build a project both on Kusama and Polkadot. Kusama's kind of grown into its own blockchain. It's not really a test net anymore. It's a full blockchain. Uh, a lot of these projects that are coming out are DeFi projects, and sure, you need DeFi on both chains, right? You need trading of currencies on both chains, and you need to have that deployed on both. We realized we just need one chain. We don't want to create two tokens, have to run two sales, run two auctions, and do all this in parallel. We can basically develop internally on our internal test net. We can open that internal test net to the public to be that testing proving ground, and then we can just deploy directly onto onto Polkadot for enterprises, businesses, game developers to use.
So you guys are on Ethereum, sort of, or not sort of. You're on Ethereum now. You plan to have a parachain slot, and I know that there's kind of like this, you know, you can kind of transition between these things, so they're all going to remain in the ecosystem. But do you think your approach may change based on how Ethereum 2.0 goes, or do you think you're just going to stick with the current plan?
So right now, our game developers on Ethereum are in a crunch point. They need to move to something that is more scalable and easier to use. So there's going to be ways to transfer your whole accounts or whole assets over to each network, from Ethereum to Efinity and back. Right now, we're focusing all our energy on developing all these new features and next gen extensions and functionality for Efinity, getting it launched, getting game developers on it. But we will probably backport some features to Ethereum. Like, we're not shutting down Ethereum and ever, right? It's always going to be available. We're always going to continue building on it. So when ETH2 comes out, sure, we'll try to backport some features. We're going to continue supporting it with our SDKs. The way our SDKs are built, you plug it into your game and you can choose the network you operate on. If you want to mint stuff on Ethereum, you choose Ethereum. You want to mint stuff on Efinity, you'll choose Efinity. In the future, there might be more chains. So we want the SDK to remain, generic, and then it'll talk to any chain you want.
So you talked a little bit about how you did some research, or you did work for about a year looking into state channels, and you mentioned Lightning. I mean, were there any layer two
Mhm.
protocols that you actually considered working on, or maybe thinking about in the future?
Yeah, yeah. So okay, so blockchains do have an issue when you start getting very popular, as we've seen with Ethereum. Everyone wants to cram onto the network all at once, and you start having to compete for resources. So we've had over a year of work into a state channel solution, which was quite innovative, and we put that on pause. But what we can do is integrate that with Efinity in the future. So when people are in a game and let's say doing a bunch of trades in between each other, it could be a whole, like maybe it could be 20 people trading in between each other or 50 people. We can compress all those transactions into one smaller transaction in a state channel. So that I think is the next step of scaling this. Once we get developers using it on board, we can start compressing these transactions and making things 100 times smaller. So it extends this, 100 times more.
I'm just really curious. This is not on my list of questions, but now that we've been talking about gaming quite a bit, I mean, how do you see a lot of this fitting into like the kind of Twitch and YouTube streaming, scenarios? Like that's a very obvious but yet centralized monetization business for players. I mean, do you guys have any thoughts around targeting like these like influencers and things that are building on top of those platforms?
Yeah, I mean, I love the streaming space, and I love streamers who build basically these interactive streaming experiences. We can see some scenarios. I mean, in gaming, where let's say you're watching someone play a game, and you could send them an NFT while they're playing, or you can boost them somehow. Have the crowd send them the weapon that they're supposed to be using during the game, and then make that an interactive experience. We've seen people like Code Miko explode in popularity because you have this interactive element where you can just spawn 3D models in her 3D virtual universe, right? I think that's really inspiring, and people love that. They love that interactive aspect. So I see that being a huge part of this. Instead of just doing donations like 99% of streamers are doing, you can actually use NFTs. Maybe the streamer can also do things like send NFTs to their viewers, or they can have some more interactive, interesting things. They can sign NFTs, etc.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. I mean, I have two kids of my own, and they live in Fortnite and in YouTube, and I see like the untapped potential because the stuff that they're doing is so rudimentary, but you see where the technology is going. And I think the metaverse and kind of, the tie into like they understand cryptocurrency already. Like, 10 years from now
Oh yeah.
when they are actually got jobs and they're making money, I mean, it's going to get crazy. I have a feeling.
My son asked for Bitcoin when he lost his tooth and put it under his pillow. He's like, "Will the tooth fairy give me a Bitcoin?" I'm like, "Whoa, that's a pretty expensive tooth
It's a
there."
baller tooth
But
fairy right there.
but I mean, like 50% of kids are playing either Roblox or Minecraft.
Yeah.
That's so mind blowing. 50%. That's crazy.
And everything crosses over. I mean, they're playing Squid Game in
Oh yeah.
Roblox for
Oh, I saw
it's
that.
like
So
it's
crazy.
crazy.
So
It's
crazy. I want
wild.
to play that actually. I want to play this Squid Game.
Looks great. Cool. So now I'm just like geeking out here. So you guys have been working on Polkadot for a while. I'm assuming. What's been like the biggest challenge of like shifting your frame of mind to substrate and parachain development from Ethereum? Like, what have been some of like the good things and some of the bad things about that?
We noticed that building on substrate requires a lot of configuration, a lot of babying the chain, configuring, seeing how things work out. It's not like Ethereum where you kind of just deploy the smart contract. It's fully deterministic. Boom, you're done, right? It's sort of a completely different process. You're building this chain, you're upgrading it, you're adding decentralized things, governance and things like that. You have to communicate with the community to do a lot more of that instead of just having a smart contract. So that's been a bit of a mentality change. We've had to grow our development team. Rust is more complex than Solidity, and it requires a completely different mindset. But it's been a great experience. I mean, the framework that's provided is really powerful, really robust, and we're fully understanding it now after working with it for over a year. Um, I guess some of the difficulties have been we didn't quite understand the full auction process on day one, and going through the documentation, it's not it's not fully documented as well as well as we'd like. So I suppose if we launched on Kusama earlier, we would have had that sort of first experience, and then we would have been able to be a lot more prepared for the first Polkadot auction. But we've solved all the issues now. We're basically launching out our actual direct contribution crowd loan now in the next 24 hours or so, and things are looking pretty good. So yeah, I guess one of the other challenges has been the substrate and Polkadot ecosystem is very new. It's very fresh. There's not these deep ingrained sort of methods of doing things. Building bridges is still super new. People are still trying to build them, and we're talking with these early teams. Everything's in flight and development. So yeah, it's a lot of just trying to figure out what's available. How far is Polkadot code base right now? Have they got this feature worked out yet? Can this unblock this other team that we're working with, and then let us do a bridge, for example? There's a lot of that going on, but we're early in the space, super early. They're just launching their first auctions. I think over the next 6 to 12 months, all these initial pain points will get ironed out, and we'll be in a good place for being early in the space.
Yeah, hopefully things will go pretty smoothly. I'm sure there's a lot of lessons learned you can from observing those projects. We got a chance to kind of come back and talk with Moonbeam and Akala, for instance, recently, and they were like, "Oh yeah, this round is going to be way easier because of like the work that they did on Kusama and some of the roadblocks and hurdles that they experienced." Does it make you a little nervous that maybe you guys are going to uncover some things you weren't thinking about, or do you feel confident in your preparation for Polkadot?
No, I mean we've been running the internal test net for quite a while, but there's always things that happen, like you launch onto the live chain, and then it's like, oh, why aren't these collator nodes syncing, or what's going on here? So there's little things we run into, but that's with any development environment. Yeah, we actually spoke to Akala recently as well, and the one concern they had was that there's very limited good user interfaces. Like they everything is very new, so people don't really know how to interact with the Polkadot.js wallet very well and use
Yeah.
Akala with that. So what we're going to try to do is actually add Akala into our wallet, and give that like a super easy interface that people are familiar with from like Ethereum days, and that'll be a really nice UX improvement for them.
I think that's awesome that the teams are so collaborative. I mean, I was going to ask you earlier, like, with the parachains and stuff, because it's so easy to like interoperate with them, it makes sense for the tokens to move around and like different, messaging protocols being established between the teams. And obviously, it was a lot of them being DeFi versus NFTs or whatever. Um, what other kinds of collaborations are you guys thinking about? I mean, obviously the big gorilla in the room on Polkadot is we got Remark is like a big NFT project there too, alongside you guys. Have you guys spoken with them? Or are you thinking about how you guys can team up in terms of like standards or any other kinds of ways that you can collaborate?
Yeah, I mean, we want to collaborate with just about every parachain that's out there and every project. So I actually had a call scheduled with Bruno from Remark, and there was some sort of timing conflict, so we'll redo that call. But yeah, I mean, they've looked at this from a completely different angle, using
Mhm.
the Remark kind of graffiti on substrate to make NFTs. So with the paratoken standard that we're developing, which I haven't even discussed yet, but that's going to take it that's going to be a completely different direction. They're taking a different direction. Both will be usable for different kinds of projects and different kinds of NFTs. So we're happy to work with everybody. We're all trying to put our minds together and build this new internet of blockchains, and all the teams have been really amazing. Everyone is very friendly. It's a very collaborative space. It's very small, so we're all just trying to build each other up, and help each other succeed, help Polkadot succeed.
Yeah, and in terms of traction, I mean, just to circle back real quick to like what you guys have accomplished in the Ethereum space. I mean, that's obviously been really huge. I mean, Kraken, we were like very eager to list Engine just because it has such a long tail, potential for people using it, and I think the expenses there are just so prohibitive. I mean, you guys have So I'm not really sure. I don't know much about this, but I saw you guys offer something called JumpNet, or you built JumpNet, which has this claim, our forever free Ethereum scaling solution, which is like this very grandiose, bold statement. But like, maybe you could explain a little bit how that works. Like, what was the thinking behind it, and what kind of traction have you guys been seeing with that?
Yeah, so JumpNet is basically Ethereum, but it's launched as a POA network. So it's it's semi-centralized. You can have nodes. As we grow the nodes, it'll be kind of robust that way. But that's what makes it ultra cheap and free, basically. So you just have a limited collection of nodes running the network, and the idea there is people can launch tokens. They can distribute, let's say, 10,000 tokens as a promotion, not pay a thing for it. It doesn't cost us much either. And then we can have bridges to Efinity, bridges to Ethereum, where if people want to take those, move them, transition them to different wallets, they can do that. We also support our development framework fully on JumpNet because it's the same code base. And people could build games on JumpNet, but people will be able to move their tokens on and off, to other networks if they like. So, some of our game developers want to use JumpNet directly. Some of them are waiting for Efinity. I think the majority of them want to move straight onto Efinity.
So you, just for the sake of our listeners, some are kind of new to this space. You mentioned this is a different. It's an Ethereum, but it's a POA. So maybe, maybe for their sake, can you explain what POA stands for? Like, what does that mean? Well, how is that different from Ethereum?
Sure, it's proof of authority. So what it means is that you can have multiple nodes, but they have all agreed that in the base configuration of POA, you have a central person that basically chooses what nodes run the network. So you can have Enjin as a company saying these 10 or 20 nodes run the network. You can also decentralize that in various ways. You can have each node be, let's say, like a notary. That's what POA network, the guys who call themselves POA network, are doing.
Yeah.
They just have notaries in various different countries that run the network, and then you can decentralize the authority node to be completely controlled by the governance of the community, and then you're semi decentralized. It allows the network to stay robust, but it's still vulnerable if many nodes get compromised. It's still vulnerable to some things. It's not as robust as basically proof of work or proof of stake is on Ethereum or Polkadot.
I think right there just demonstrates how not black and white the concept of decentralization is. It's like, really, you got to look very hard at what your project is trying to accomplish, and figure out what level of decentralization is really appropriate for that. We've seen several POA networks, and it's for a lot of people just like explodes their mind when they think about all these different options. But you guys have done a lot of work, it seems like, on many different types of networks to try and accommodate what you're doing, which is really, really cool. So in Engine Coin is on ETH. You have JumpNet. You now have Efinity coming out. You mentioned that you guys are going to be opening the crowd loan within the next 24 hours. I'm just taking a quick peek over here at my dashboard, and I mean, we're already seeing $3.5 billion worth of Polkadot contributed on crowd loans, and you guys haven't opened yours yet. What what's the thinking around that? Are you guys planning to go for a later slot? Are you do you have something else in mind? What help us
Yeah.
understand?
Yeah, our target has been slot 4 and 5. We're
Okay.
hoping for slot 4. We've looked at everyone going for the different parachain slots. We think that we have a really good chance. Again, time will tell. We have to see what impact retail has. But there's many components to these crowd loans. There's the large backers, the whales, who have massive dot stashes from way back when, and they're contributing to projects that they believe in. So there's that component that all the parachains are working with. There's general public who believes in the project, and I think we are very strong in that aspect. We have over 100,000 people who hold Engine Coin, and many more than that who actually hold assets around Engine and NFTs and things like that. We have a good game developer community. We have 350,000 followers on Twitter. We have 2 million people who've installed Engine Wallet. So we have a lot of avenues to inform people. And I think the goal will be educating people around what this means, what's a parachain auction, and we'll see how the reaction is of the community. Again, we have a few different avenues that we're pursuing across the board. So we're gonna go for slot number 4 or 5, and I guess we'll see what happens in the next 2 weeks.
So I mean, before the Kusama auctions, no one even had a clue what Akala or Moonbeam was. I mean, these are just like newcomers to this space. You guys are huge already in ETH. I mean, did you think about that in terms of like when you wanted to do a slot? Did you think that you guys could have, really brought some cachet to like the brands around, in this space, or you just want to just get this like auction done and kind of progress forward? You don't want to be in that drama of this first slot, because it seems like there's quite a battle
No,
going down between the two right now.
No, I think the first slot, I think Akala, Moonbeam definitely, deserve to get there. They serve extremely useful, functions as as a virtual machine platform for Ethereum, and the sort of DeFi play. I think they're basically guaranteed the first two slots, so there's no point, saying we're going to get the first slot. But I think there's a strong need for an NFT parachain. And so, when you see multiple DeFi players, we think that, probably it'd be good to have an NFT chain, because we can bring in so many interesting games and adopters and businesses. We actually have so many enterprises that want to use Polkadot, and they want to get on Efinity. They want to use Polkadot. They believe in the entire philosophy of this whole network. So we're trying to get on there as soon as humanly possible, so we can actually enable these projects. So again, we're as I said, we're going to go with this multi-pronged strategy. There's also exchanges, as we know here. Like, exchanges are a huge part of it. We've seen a very good contribution on Binance so far, and we're really excited about Kraken. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's something that we were really hoping and really believed in before we started working on it with Kusama, and the response has been amazing. And we're really happy to be able to support the network. And also, one concern I had was like, well, are the centralized exchanges going to end up being like the bulk of contributions on these platforms? But I'm looking at the contribution amounts, and tens of thousands of people. Exchange only counts once on the contributions chart, and there's still tens of thousands of people participating in these, which is just shows the immense amount of support these products have. I mean, are you?
Yeah.
I know you guys probably think that like the incumbents will just like crush these first few auction slots, but does it concern you at all that maybe some of these whales are impatient and like not ready? Or, I mean, I guess the reason why I ask is because in the first round of auctions on Kusama, a lot of the teams said like, well, the cap doesn't matter. We're not really like that concerned with it. We're just trying to win the slot, And then this round, it's like, well, whatever. Their caps are like pretty much uncapped. They're just like
Was it
raising these.
multi-billion-dollar caps? Yeah, it's insane. It's crazy.
Yeah, and so it seems like that mentality has just been like, well, let's just ride this wave of excitement. I mean, I don't know. Do you guys like feel like you want to be in that right away? I mean, I guess you're opening it up soon. So the day we're recording this is what, November 16th. So you guys are planning to open it up tomorrow. I
Yeah,
guess we'll just see.
basically. Yeah. We've been testing on West End. We need to make sure. I mean, it's a very, we're basically, launching our first version of Efinity, right? It's actually going to have token support and everything, and we have to have that blob of code ready, to be live on mainnet in December when we're in the slot. So we've been testing diligently on West End, and now we're basically, right around the corner from putting it up on mainnet as soon as our team gets online tonight. So yeah.
Yeah. So,
Again, we.
oh no, sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, again, like, if there's a lot of really good chains in batch one, but again, I think the NFT chain is going to be very important. It serves a completely different utility, and so when you see, people backing, there's a lot of chains that are just, offering sky high APY, right? And everyone's chasing that APY, and wow, we're going to get like, so many percent rate per year or whatever. But you have to think about, what's the long term outlook. I think NFT being part of the first NFT chain on Polkadot is quite valuable. So
I think it's going to be huge. And one other thing about what you guys are doing on Efinity that I found super interesting, just because I also help coordinate the staking part of our business, is engine staking that's going to be supported. Maybe you could explain a little bit about that and why that seems super compelling.
yeah, so we have basically 100,000 people who have who hold Engine Coin in various ways, and more that hold NFTs with Engine Coin inside of them. So our concept 4 years ago was, why not let people put ENJ inside an NFT, and that gives it some sort of value where they can eventually melt it down and take up the ENJ. But 99.9% of cases you see people don't mint the NFT. It's fine holding the NFT and knowing you have that ENJ inside. So what we did is, now by holding these NFTs, you're actually automatically going to be staking and selecting the people that run the Efinity network, those collator nodes. So everyone who participates in the games owns, swords and collectibles and characters and items. They're going to be basically helping support the Efinity network, and they're going to be receiving EFI as a reward for doing so. And so their wallets in the background will be selecting collators that provide them the best benefits. So the way these parachains work is, you have a number of collator nodes. The ones that are selected as the top, the top voted nodes on the network will run that parachain, and those will receive on Efinity. They'll receive the transaction fees, the marketplace commissions, and then they'll basically distribute that out. They'll distribute a reward out to people who have voted them in. So yeah, that's all going to work seamlessly with all the gaming items that we've already have created on the Engine platform. And as games start moving over, their users will have some EFI now to participate in the Efinity network.
I think that seems like a very organic way of getting people to familiarize themselves with these kinds of concepts. I mean, even though staking is it's pretty simple actually. Once you get down to it, it's like, I'll just stake it and then you get a yield, and it's pretty straightforward. But still, so many people don't do it because they just don't understand. Like, what am I doing? Am I giving away my coins? Like I don't get it. But I think if they're starting to earn it kind of through engagement in a gaming platform or whatever, it just, I think people will just kind of become more aware of it more quickly.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And it helps people. Gaming is a great avenue because they're playing a game, they're doing transactions. We want to actually remove that whole technical aspect of it, and you're just playing the game. You're getting items, you're doing some transactions, you're receiving some EFI in the background. It's going to feel natural. It's not going to feel like you have to install plugins and get onto these weird
Yeah.
websites and do all these staking things. You don't know what's happening.
Although gamers do seem to not be bothered by installing all kinds of weird clients and hacks and bots and everything else. It seems like it's part of the culture a little bit, but yeah, I think user experience is definitely super critical. I just, even with NFTs in general.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to touch on too is that, you know, is Japan. Japan is a huge gaming market. We just had an interview with A Star, who is focusing pretty heavily. Sota and his team are focusing on Japan, and I know that it seems like Engine has like pretty good traction there as well. I mean, do you think there's anything different about the Japanese market in terms of NFTs and gaming compared to the rest of the world? Like, is their level of interest and excitement higher, or are they just more engaged? Do you see a difference at all?
Well, Japan is interesting. I mean, Japan invented Pokemon, right? So
Yeah.
there's the thing that got me into collecting things in the first place. But look, Japan is very strict and stringent in terms of regulation. We were actually the first gaming based token to be approved in Japan. So we have a small team in Japan that is looking at opportunities there. Basically, we're just trying to form ecosystem partners and relationships with gaming companies and with various partners there. And that will bring the audience from Japan into gaming and into NFTs through those partners.
Well, this has been a really great talk. I have one more quick question around this announcement you guys made recently about $100 million Affinity Metaverse Fund. So maybe you could share with us a little bit about how people can get involved with that, what it is. Sounds pretty exciting.
Yeah, so we realize that there's going to be a ton of people building things in the metaverse. It isn't just giant gaming companies with millions of dollars. It's also, small indie teams with a few creators, or it could just be some guy, with a really good idea building something in Unity or Unreal Engine. And so, from small to large creators, we need to provide some sort of support in order to inspire them to use blockchain. Typically, it's kind of a hard sell even today when you're talking about making a blockchain game. Most VCs or people who are trying to fund a game are going to think blockchain game, so you're going to try to pre-sale a bunch of items and kind of
Just
sell
jam
out
it in
and do
there.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And people don't seem to understand what blockchain gaming could be yet. So we want to provide this support. We have this fund now that we've created, and we can put this fund into all interesting ideas and projects. Our goal is to have 1,000 adopters in 1 year, 1,000 extra adopters in 1 year. How are we going to do that? We need to provide both development support, documentation, the tooling, and the funding to help that happen and stimulate that activity. So, yeah, anyone who's building, if you want to build something on the blockchain, or if you want to build a cool game and add some blockchain aspects to it, that's who we're really interested in. Come to us, talk to us, and we can help you build that.
Well, it seems like you guys are well on your goal. I saw a chart you put up in your podcast with Binance the other day. Just showed some of the people that have been building on top of the Engine ecosystem, and it was like it had so many I couldn't even like sort out all the logos. But and I'm sure that's growing every day. And this fund will probably definitely help that. So where can our listeners go to find out more about the fund, Efinity, JumpNet, all of these things? Like where can they go? What's the main place to go?
You can basically go to our main website, engine.io, enjin.io. And also to learn about Efinity, you can go to efinity.io, EFINITY.
And if people want to follow you, are you on social media or anything? Can they find you, or are you just hiding out?
No, I'm on Telegram, and I'm on Twitter. So you can go find me on Witek Radomski on Twitter, or just ping me in our Telegram group on Engine Telegram.
All right. Well, thank you so much for stopping by. This is a fascinating conversation. I feel like we could have talked for like 8 more hours about all this stuff, but I don't want to like keep you from your busy work and the team. Thank you so much for stopping by, VTech.
Thank you. It was fun.
Thanks again to our guest, VTech. Make sure you like, subscribe, and review us on your favorite podcast platform, and we'll be sure to bring you along as we get a backstage pass to the world of Parachain Auctions. And until next time, I'm Brian Hoffman, and this has been the Parachain Auctions podcast. This content is not financial or investment advice. All interviews and discussions are opinions only. Kraken does not endorse the accuracy of this content. None of the following information should be construed as a recommendation to support any specific parachain project or to participate in parachain auctions in general. See our terms of service for more information.